Oh, now we'll see.
I'd like to call the April 26th meeting of the Wilton Board of Education to order. First action is to review and approve the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at it? Thoughts, questions, comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At the beginning of every meeting, we have an opportunity for comments from the public. As we've said many times, we look forward to feedback both through our email address and also through these meetings. If there's anybody that wants to come up and speak, please do so. Okay, seeing none, we move on to the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look through that?
Yes.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I only have a couple of comments today. With the 2012-2013 budget process nearing its conclusion, with a town meeting, which is next Tuesday, May 1st, at the Clune Center at 7:30 p.m. We have a relatively light agenda tonight, and so I'm assuming that the presentations and discussions are going to stay on point. We should have a relatively short meeting. But I do want to say how much I appreciate the work that the administration and this board has done in developing this year's budget. I know it's been a lot of work. It's been a long journey, and I want to personally say thank you to everybody for that. Additionally, I'd like to express appreciation both to the boards of Finance and Selectmen for supporting our budget, and especially the capital bonding projects that affect our schools. It's very important that people get out and vote on the 1st or on the 5th to support those capital bonding projects. There's a tremendous amount of time, effort, and dedication that goes into developing these proposals so they represent the best solutions and best value for the town. And I, as a Wiltonian, am very appreciative for all that's been done. Regardless of how you vote, please get out to vote to show your appreciation for the time and energy that so many volunteers have dedicated to running Wilton smoothly, as smoothly as possible. Thank you. Dr. Richards?
Good evening. I have two items tonight. The first has to do with the Wilton Education Foundation. I try, as you know, each month to highlight some of the work, and I know Mr. Likely does as well, that this group does for our schools month in and month out. The first thing I wanted to comment on is something that the chair of the foundation, Christopher Kit Smith, wrote, and some of you may have seen this, a terrific piece for the Bulletin entitled Championship Wilton Teams You May Never Have Heard of. And he talked about, he said, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but when a Wilton High School athletic team wins an FCIAC or state championship, everyone in town knows. Large crowds attend the games, and local media run banner headlines championing the victories. In similar towns, road signs proudly proclaim to those entering that a state championship sports team calls this particular town home. And then he goes on to talk about, unfortunately, the same attention is not paid to some of the academic teams that are very successful. And I have talked to the board at other times, and some of you are well aware of the success of this. I think we had spoken earlier about the debate team and the work of the success of the debate team this year under the advisorship of Barbara Lyons won 15 national and 34 state and local awards. And then last fall, you may recall, the varsity team won the Yale Invitational, which is a team meet that draws debate teams from all over the Northeast. Most recently, the teams, as you know, took first and second place in local Connecticut Debate Association tournaments and captured second and third best varsity speaker awards. In the state finals, our teams placed third and fifth and captured first and second best varsity speaker awards. So terrific performance by our debate team. We've talked about them in the past. The Science Olympiad team, 30 kids strong. I mean, that is very cool. 30 kids, I think, competed in the Connecticut State Science Championships under the guidance of several of our biology teachers, Kate Eckenrode and Sue Stedham. Students prepared all year long they were in 23 different competitions, which is I think, quite remarkable. In the championships competing against public and independent schools, Wilton team finished third, medaling for the third year in a row. Not to be outdone, the JV team captured 5th place. And apparently, as you know from the work and of some of our Middlebrook students and the success in the state of science fair, we've got some talent coming up in the farm team. So we should continue to be very good in the Science Olympiad. The Academic World Quest, we've spoken about that, captured 1st place in a competition sponsored by the World Affairs Forum, besting teams from Fairfield and Westchester counties. And they're competing in the Washington, D.C. later this month. I'm told that I think it was this team that got to go to several consulates. I think they went to the Chinese consulate or even perhaps the Chinese embassy and were welcomed. So they've had experiences beyond the competition where they get some really extraordinary opportunities. The Model Congress team captured Outstanding High School Delegation Award at the Yale Model Congress competition and claimed 4 Best Speaker Awards and 2 Best Speaker Awards at the Columbia University Model Congress. And I've had the opportunity to stand in and watch some of their meetings, and it's very, they're energized, they're smart. Ellen was talking about walking down the stairs behind 2 of them today, who were having this conversation that sounded like 2 diplomats or attorneys talking about the structure of the competition, and they were going to write a position paper recommending procedural changes, and they were both very engaged, and not in an obnoxious way. And it was the kind of conversation you would hear from 2, like I said, 2 adults, and they were wonderful. The National History Bowl competed in the regional championships, and both the team and individual qualified for the nationals. They're going to be in Washington later this spring. And then finally, the Academic Challenge team that Terry Ragazzini is coaching. Airs the state finals air, and we're in it on May 22nd. There's an embargo on the outcome, but you should watch it. So, in fact, we would urge you to keep an eye on all these academic teams. So they are bringing home the awards, and they've worked really hard. So I think it's great to see, in addition to athletics and the arts, to see an academic program that's alive and well. And one of the things I've always loved about Wilton, I think it's cool to be a musician or an artist or a science person. That in some places that's not cool, but it is here, I think. A second thing that the foundation's doing later this month, it's next weekend, Saturday, May 5th, is Acoustic Wilton. I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of these concerts. Scott Weber, the incoming co-chair of the foundation, is a wonderfully talented guy, and he puts together some community people and a group of very talented kids, and it is a fabulous evening. It's going to be in the little theater Saturday, May 5th at 7:30, and tickets you can get online. So we've sold out. The last time in the fall, they were at the Wilton Public Library Brubeck Room, and I stood in the back because all the seats had been sold. So it'll be a great evening. Finally, the 4th annual Get Smart for Wilton 5K is going to be held Sunday, May 27th. The registry, it's right here on our, where are we? Right over there at the snack area of the athletic stadium. Registration's at 8, and the race starts promptly at 9. 5K. Some of our board members have participated in this, Mr. Bray and his wife. And you can walk it if you so desire. 5K is not far. Registration's online at wiltoneducationfoundation.org, and it's for a great cause. So, again, I want to salute the foundation and all the terrific work they do on behalf of our schools. The second item has to deal with the Tri-State Consortium visit. As you know, we have for years, we've been charter members of the Tri-State Consortium, which is an organization of high-performing school systems that really have created a rubric for evaluating each other and form critical friends groups. It's one really rooted in best practice, and it's exciting to get together with educators from some of the best districts in the country, and we're really pleased because I think it causes all of us to look how we can study ways that we can become better. We had in May of 2010 a visit by the consortium, a group of critical friends, trained evaluators, came in and looked at our K-12 English language arts program. This was something that the principals and instructional leaders all spent a year really preparing for this visit. And the object of it was to look at, take a very deep look at our English language arts program and look at the ways that we can improve them. Specifically, we looked at two questions. One essential question was, to what extent does the district's current approach to the teaching of reading reflect an articulated K-12 curriculum that is aligned both vertically and horizontally? Now, there's a lot of ed speak in that. But what we really mean by that is when we look at our approach of teaching reading, have we really thought through how kindergarten relates to first grade and so on? We call it articulation. And it can be both vertical through the grades and also horizontal, so that a youngster in one of the teams or at Julia's school or one of the houses at Jenny's school, that the language arts program is comparable, so that we're trying to have an assured experience for youngsters, so it's not so dependent upon the luck of the draw. So anyway, that was one question, is how well do we articulate our programs in the district. And then the second question was, to what extent does the district's current approach to the teaching of writing do the same thing? So we're really doing a very deep dive on reading and writing. And I know there's some people that say, well, what's the big deal about reading? They just look at a bunch of words and read them. But we're really talking, as you know, about deep critical reading, inferential reading, being able to develop skills very early on in kids' careers that will serve them well their whole lives. At the end in 2010, the group issued some commendations, things that they really liked about what we were doing, based on, again, a set of standards and rubric. And they also gave us some recommendations. And so they're coming back, a subset, I believe, of the entire visiting team. I don't know if the whole team's coming back.
A large percentage is returning.
Okay, so and again, these are educators from Scarsdale and Bronxville and Chappaqua and Westport and districts like ours who have been trained to do this. They're coming back on Tuesday, and we're going to have a follow-up series of very structured conversations. They call it a consultancy protocol, and what that means is that we will make a presentation. Tim's been working with the instructional leaders on this, a presentation to them about here's what we've done in response to the recommendations. And then there's a series throughout the rest of the day of structured conversations about that work and about the evidence that we bring to bear to show what we're doing. So it's really, I'm really looking forward to sitting in on that and watching the protocol, hearing what the critical friends are saying about our program, and also looking at the exchange of information in the conversation. So we will be reporting back to the board probably early in the fall, because there will be some ongoing work this summer. So we will schedule that for the fall to kind of follow up. But again, we talk about the consortium, and I thought it would be important for you to hear yet another example of how this is something that is helping us drive, along with the strategic plan and along with the really terrific work that our instructional leaders and Tim and the Curriculum Council are doing, principals, to move our language arts program forward. So really, it's exciting, and I can't wait to see how it turns out on Tuesday.
Wonderful, thank you. At this point, we move on to our committee reports, and I'm glad I saw your notes about your comments before I launched off into talking about Kit's article in the paper, because I saw it, and I was thrilled to see it. We also, many of us today received an email with a Wilton Education Foundation video done with a number of local kids, and it warmed my heart, in part because some of the kids in there I've known since they were babies. So if you haven't seen the video, encouraging people to get out to vote that Wilton Education Foundation did, please take a look at it. Other committee reports? Nothing on... Okay. I know we're going to see something else on that later.
Yes.
Miss-
Yeah, we do.
okay.
Well, we have a new committee that we started.
Officially a work group.
A work group.
Yes.
Okay. So it'll be official. Laura and I have gotten together, and we are going to attempt to address the whole question of participation fees. At this point, all we've heard is a lot of anecdotal information and different people giving us their points of view, and the two of us got together and said, well, what do we really know about this, and do we really understand how it works or what the impact could be, and where is it successful, where is it not so successful, and that sort of thing. And at this point in time, we only came up with our goal statement of what we would hope to achieve. And we'd like to share that with the board, get your feedback on that, so we could add that to maybe a future agenda. And then from there, we'll model or put together a process of how we plan to gather the information and report that back to you as well. And of course, we would welcome input from the board and administration along the way.
Wonderful.
And I think Laura has a copy of the goal statement. If you want to share that with the group now.
You're welcome to if you want to, otherwise you can pass it around and we can talk about it at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll just read it.
It's not official until
Okay,
we
it's
vote
not
on it,
official
so
until
it's
Right,
Right,
gives
so
input
it's on
and
the
whatever. I
agenda.
don't think, Lori covered it very well, but just things we talked about was, because it is a recurring theme that comes up often. We're going to look at Wilton and other schools in our DRG, as well as other Connecticut school districts. We're limiting it to the state of Connecticut. And we will be focusing on the fees currently paid by Wilton students, as well as policies in effect in school districts that have adopted pay-for-play fee structures, in addition to districts that have discussed it and decided against it, and why, what were their arguments and what were the reasons for not having participation fees, and
Wonderful. When the two of you were talking about doing this, it also sounded to me like you wanted to take a dive into understanding what families are already being expected to pay.
yes.
And I think that's a very valuable part of this process, because I don't think the town is aware of how much is already being contributed to the educational system through the families of Wilton. So I think that's great. We look forward to hearing more.
And I think it's also important to note that Laura and I come at this from the same perspective, and that is we're very open-minded about all of this. We're very neutral on that position, and we both said, if the board was forced into a vote, we would not know how to vote, because we simply don't have the facts about the situation. And that's where we started talking and said, we need to go find what the facts are for ourselves. So that's really how it all started.
Great.
I would encourage you as you go about this process to talk to some of the booster groups and see whether or not the participation fee, especially for something like hockey, which tends to be high in some
Right.
towns, has made a difference in what the booster groups can do.
Right.
Wonderful.
The booster groups are obviously going to be part of our research.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anything else to report? Any other committee reports? Okay, thank you. At this point, we have the annual presentation on the continuing education department. And I have to say, it's one of my most enjoyable presentations of the year. I'm laughing trying to downplay it and say it's a boring, quiet, just no energy presentation. But given who's presenting, I'll leave it at that you're going to have a wonderful time listening to this presentation. So, without further ado.
Well, it's a great pleasure that I introduce Dolores Tupariello and Emily Dowden, part of our leadership team of the Continuing Ed program. And it's so eloquently stated here tonight to present a summary report of our Continuing Ed program for this school year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone. As usual, it is a great pleasure to be here, and thank you to the new members. I want to make a comment about your comment. I was driving and I heard
You notice how I
Woody Allen.
dodged pronouncing your last name?
I know,
3 years I
right?
dodged that.
Woody Allen on the radio saying, "Mellow is not me." Mellow is not me. I have with me tonight Emily Dowden, our supervisor of children's programs, and together we will present our year. But before I begin that, I'd like to cite a study out of the psychology department at Harvard that states if an adult education coordinator drones on for more than 10 minutes Only 25% of you will be paying attention. The other 25% will be drifting to sleep, and the remainder of you will be checking your email. So, given sake that, I would like to just jump right in. Our accomplishments this year. Well, the first accomplishment is to remain self-supporting. That is a goal that we have every year. And to help us to become self-supporting, we had to do a few things this year. One was to revitalize our cider mill after-school program, and we talked about that a lot last year. And the other thing we did was to strengthen our infrastructure. I'd like to speak now to the infrastructure. Oh, let's stay here. The formula really for adult ed to continue to remain self-supporting is a simple formula really, but quite complex. One is to expand the programming while adding value to those programs. The catalyst really is to reduce and to continue to look at reducing administrative costs and printing costs. That should yield increased registrations, which should yield increased revenue to support us. All right, what we had to do this year really was to strengthen the infrastructure. This meant rolling out this technology plan from the ground up. That meant we put in technology at every level in our programs, child care on up. In the child care programs, we put in computers. We gave them all email addresses. That gave these instructors increased autonomy to be able to handle just about any information that's on our website about the student and the program. What I like to say about that is that these instructors are not reacting, they're proactive. But what I really like to say is that they're not working in an emergency mode for non-emergency issues. So we empowered these instructors, and they became, these little sites became more autonomous and not dependent upon the office. The other thing we did was we worked a lot this year with Matt Hefford's team, the technology team, in order to do that. Our child care manager, who's not here tonight, Sue Alstrom, has also a background in technology, and she helped us lay out this plan. And the other thing we did was we put in a back office billing system. We have two, and we were trying to streamline it into one. And for obvious reasons, to reduce costs and to make it just a more simple process. So we worked on that this year in place of next year. And that'll begin in May, actually, for us with our registrations. Now, because of a shift to thrift, we had to make a move to improve. And that is these enhancements we had to put in our after-school child care program. One thing we did at the end of last year was we rebranded the after-school, and we call it the Fun Side. Now, this after-school program at Cider Mill really needed to be re-energized. Because of that shift to thrift, we saw a decrease in enrollment of it, so we had to do something about it. And I talked about this last year, too. The first thing we did was we became trained in responsive classroom techniques, level 1. And we put some of those, just a few of those, in effect. And that paralleled with the philosophy at Cider Mill. In fact, there were 2 Cider Mill teachers that trained us. And the training then went down the ranks for all of our instructors. So we did that. That was the foundation. But then we hired Coach Mike to bring in structured activity time for our students, because we do know that exercise is important. And while we had free play was not working for us. We had to bring in, we had to power it up there. Oh, well, go back one more, I'm sorry. The other thing we did was we mapped our programs back to the Cider Mill calendar and their themes. So we did activities along with what Cider Mill was doing. So, it just made sense. And then, now this was a fall planting project that we did at our after-school program. So this was the fall, and then this is the spring. So, lo and behold, the tulips came up, and it was quite nice. Okay, in addition to that, it's all about communication. Whenever you make a change within the infrastructure, anytime you make a change, it's all about communication. Communication from the top right down to the bottom at the school level. So communication, we have a bulletin board now at Cider Mills, so we have presence right on site. And we rolled out the Extended Day Extra, which is an online newsletter that goes right to the parents. And this is an example of our Extended Day Extra. We talk about programming. It's something that we look at constantly to bring in revenue to support us. We evaluate it each year to see if it's working. If it's not working, we ask why, we look into it, and we change it up. Emily this year brought in 12 new and successful enrichment programs. And Karen, I remember last year, this speaks to what you were talking about. And what you were saying was, we're bringing in programs at every level for every person. And I'm going to have Emily talk about that.
This year we really tried to continue to vary the program types as well as the class lengths and the program prices. In addition to the 8-week traditional enrichment program sort of structure, we offered 6-week indoor and outdoor tennis, running clubs, speed and agility training programs. We offered 5-week back-to-back Zumba and yoga classes. If the kids wanted to take both for 10 weeks, great. If not, 5 weeks. We offered theme-based one-hit wonders, as we like to call them, Halloween haunted houses, winter wonderland houses, as you can see.
I want to just make a comment about this class. You know, Emily is telling us that we're going to do this winter wonderland house. Okay, now the point of this was not to bring in sweets, but to decorate. It was a decorating class. So I viewed this class as twofold. One was decorating, and the other one was a class in self-control. I thought this is extremely valuable.
Yes, with the Valentine's Day cupcakes. This year, we also began working with the youngest members of our school community, the 3- and 4-year-olds, in the Wilton High School Helping Hands preschool program, in conjunction with Rebby Townsend and her program, and the high school kids, the Early Childhood Development Program. We were approached to offer a lunch bunch program. 1 day a week. It's been really successful. 8 out of the 11 children have registered, and it's been really fun. And it's a great opportunity because we can go and slip in and have lunch with them as well. I believe now we've expanded our client base to 3 to 83.
Right, the age groups. Now we accommodate 3 to age 83.
One final class I'd like to share with you tonight is our keyboarding class at Cider Mill. This winter we were approached by parents to offer a keyboarding class. Cider Mill students were asked to type a lot of reports, and the parents wanted to increase their keyboarding skills. So we worked with the administration. We received approval at Cider Mill to use the computer lab, which was wonderful. Matt Hepfer had a little extra money in his software budget, and he provided a new software upgrade for the kids from Type to Learn 3 to Type to Learn 4, which was really fabulous. It was a big jump in that software. And in the future, we're definitely going to continue to offer keyboarding as well as support the curriculum and offer other classes in terms of nutritional programs and maybe some stress management classes. And now back to you with your new adult ed program. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we talked about a couple of things there. One was working pretty closely with the administration. I would like to, before I close and get into the new adult, I first would like to thank all of the attendees tonight for your support this year. Working with, the principals and, to supplement curriculum was just truly magnificent. So that, we've worked pretty closely with them, with technology and with special services. Anne's not here tonight. I did see her earlier. So it was a great year. It was a busy year. It's always a busy year. but I'd like to just touch upon just a few. We do a lot of new things in adult ed, but a few interesting ones. Blogging, which was pretty popular, especially in this fall. The geocaching class is coming up, and I'm hoping that we get more enrollees. That is in support of the wellness part, and that came about 2 years ago. I was in a meeting with Karen Strickland at the Y, and we were talking about the childhood obesity issue. So the question is always, and this is the interesting question, not how do you get a child to move? Some kids are naturally athletic and love it. How do you get the academic to move more? How do you get them outside? I had just come back from a hiking trip with my husband, and he loves this geocaching thing, and he took me to the Leatherman's Loop cave, and we had to find this cache there, and we were set. Steve Pierce knew what it was, I knew what it was, so we are, I think, the first town to put this out, and I am thrilled. And I will say this, it might not, it'll be slow to take on, but I think it will, and I think it'll be very popular in Wilton. And there's so many geocaching sites in Wilton, and that's really in support of that park. So I'm really happy to do this.
I apologize. Can you take 2 seconds and explain geocaching for those who don't know?
Geocaching is an electronic treasure hunt. Emily's going to, no, we don't normally do flyers, but we did flyers for tonight. Because we're pretty green, as you know.
Thank you.
Geocaching is an electronic treasure hunt. It's almost like orienteering. You find the cache, and you can either record it, you can take it, you could put it, you could supplement it with something else. It's and what you do with that is you are out there and you are with maybe someone, maybe your family. It's a great family adventure. And you're allowed to use your electronic device, and they have a GPS with you, and you can download an app, a GPS app or a geocaching app for free, because they are out there. I have 2 on my iPad. And so you go and you look for the cache. And you look at these coordinates, and you're out there, family fun, you're exercising, and you're hooked into your electronic, your phone, your iPad. You got it all going on there.
Thank you.
So anyway, we're happy to introduce that. We're one of the only towns that are doing this, and it's maybe slow to catch on, but it will. It's been around a long time, by the way. French cooking is new this year and very popular. We have a great French cooking class going on in the morning. I'm sorry.
I think French cooking's been around a long time, too.
But not this one. And if you're free in the morning, she will be doing at Trackside our French macaron class, which is a very new and popular dessert right now. It's very trendy right now. And we are up on the trends. Expanded Apple and iPad classes, very popular in the fall. We expanded those. Because there really wasn't enough time the way we had set it up for adults to learn more about their iPads. And in addition to that, their phones as well. And memory enhancement. Those are some new programs that we put in places. Memory enhancement is very popular.
Can you tell me what geocaching sorry.
As my son said to me, Mom, you asked that question 5 times. Okay. All right, well, anyway, the focus for next year will be this, a Facebook page. Now, a Facebook page is going to be used with all of our operating units, the enrichment classes, the child care, and for adult education. And as you know, Facebook is not for the young. Facebook is for everyone. The section of the demographic that is growing rapidly is the age group between 34 and 54. They are the joiners, and that's rapidly growing. 55 and over are the spectators, but they are still connected. They are still looking. And with social media, we say it's like plumbing. It's essential now. We need it. And you have to be in that game. So we're going to go with the Facebook page. And our manager of child care actually has this background in technology, and she's going to help us put that together. Another goal for next year, which I'm working on right now, is a workshop in adult education, in technology and businesses, geared for small businesses. So that's going to be in place in the fall. And that's a business workshop for adult education. I want to say this before I close. I want to say that we want Wilton continuing education to be a habit, not a decision. And that's why we start very young with 3s going up to 83. Okay, something you have all been waiting to hear. I know. That is the top 5 adult education programs this year. Something you've all been waiting for. And number 5, ballroom dancing. We brought in new ballroom instructors, and they are phenomenal, and we are getting a great following for that. Cooking was extremely popular this year. Cooking is always popular in the fall, not so much in the winter, spring. And we did bring in a new chef, a new French chef. Tomorrow, trackside 10 o'clock, French macaroons. Tennis, we brought in a new tennis instructor. Very good. We have cardio tennis and advanced tennis beginning next Tuesday with them during the day, 9:30 and 10:30. If you can get out of work. I don't know if that's possible. Computer workshops. These computer workshops were very popular. Anything having to do with mobile devices, phone and iPad, very popular. The Microsoft Excel, very popular. Intuit, very popular. QuickBooks. And one class that we put together 2 years that we've seen tremendous growth with is this Essential Computer Skills class. It's a Microsoft class, and if you needed to update your skills, this is where you would come. It's 4 mornings a week. You can come in the evenings as well, very popular. And again, once again, Dr. Richards, the top adult ed education class this year is our Zumba class once again. I think it leads it the last 3 years.
You've enjoyed that?
I've been thinking about it all.
Right.
It's now a French cookie.
Right.
Oh, thank
And
you.
now we would like to come up for questions.
Wonderful. As always, your presentations are fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any specific questions?
Do we have any coordination with other towns? For example, my husband wanted to learn how to speak French.
Yes.
So Wilton doesn't have French, so he goes to Westport. So that's
Yes.
great. They have it. We don't really both need to have it. So is there any coordination?
Yes. Well, actually, we will have French in the fall for
Oh.
adults.
There you go.
But there is always contact with other adult education. In fact, today with Greenwich, yes. Westport is our closest town. We have a good relationship with them, as well as others. Because they're neighboring, we do want to see what they're offering. And we try to complement each other in our programs. Because we are close, we try not to compete. There is overlap, though, all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But yes.
Does Westport do the GED
Yes,
program?
that is
in
correct.
these people?
Right.
And that's a collaboration.
Yes.
How do we communicate what we're offering to other towns? Because I know I'm always getting the Westport catalog sent to my house.
Yes.
Are we doing the same?
Yes.
Okay.
We send out 55,500 brochures. That is down from, I think it came down from 90, went to 70, and now 55. So we do send out to surrounding towns. It is in the report. We do send to, 80% of our registrations are Wilton, by the way, followed by the few zips that we send in Norwalk, then Ridgefield, and then, of course, we offer to Georgetown, Reading, Bethel.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say one thing about that. A big cost is that brochure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I have been doing over the past few years is we took the glossy cover and got rid of it, made it matte. We reduced it by 4 pages. All these things add up. We reduced even the distribution, but you really have to make big moves in the distribution to save money. The goal this year is now to take the text and reduce it Not dramatically, because I don't think a dramatic change in that is the right plan, but a gradual reduction in the text to drive the demographic more to the website. The demographic likes to hang on to that, and until they become more comfortable with just going to the website, we still have that. But so that's the plan.
Do you have all the email addresses of all the people who've been there before, so each year,
Yes.
each semester, you're sending out information?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do a couple of email, we have an email marketing plan that we roll out, 6-week plan that we roll out in beginning in August for September. We send out emails, we e-blast through the Web Solutions website, that's our website, and then we might target some classes through Edline for the families or the parents.
Right, in conjunction with enrichment programs.
Right.
Let's say, we're coming up with the fall, then we'll throw some fall programs in the e-blast. So it's student and adult.
Were you self-sufficient last year, and do you think you'll be self-sufficient this year?
Yes.
The short answer is yes, and I would like to say, I think this has probably been our best year. So,
To that point, Dolores, I see in your report you've had like a surge in preschool drop-ins.
well, the drop-in number does not bring in really the money.
Well, it's more the service. And as,
Yes.
Someone who has in the past benefited from that, it was always manageable, but you've had quite a surge in that. And I guess my question is, can you accommodate
Yes.
a surge like
Yes. The answer is yes, but let me tell you one thing we did to probably see that spike. We did something in marketing. Actually, this again, Sue is not here tonight. She's at like 3 lacrosse games, but she did something called a 5-pass drop-in pass. And it reduced the, so people were buying them, and we can accommodate. Now, if we can accommodate with staff, we have usually a lead instructor, and this is for childcare, and we hire high school aid. Well, then, we have a list of people that work for us, subs, and then we could just bring someone in because we have to be in line with the ratios, the student, to teacher ratio. So, yes, but I think the spike came from this 5-pass drop-in that we stared to sell, really.
It was at a reduced rate.
Yeah, it's such a great
It was.
service.
If you bought 5, you got $5
Off of
per
each.
day.
Right.
Per day.
Wow.
It was $35 per day. It went to $30 per day if you bought 5.
With this economy, you really had to show incentives. Plus, when you have an economy like this, you have to pay attention to how you're operating, and you have competition. We have competition right across the street. The Y is there. We have Comstock. And, we have to know about them so we can make improvements to our program to accommodate. We want Wilton families to think of us immediately. A habit, not a decision.
Yeah, I saw this flyer over the weekend, and I said, it's great. Look at the cooperation between continuing ed, trackside, and the Y.
Right. Yes, well, actually, that is great. I mean, we put together the program. We talked about it 2 years ago. We saw it through to fruition. It's going to be in a couple of weeks. And Mark Catley said he would host it. And he will advertise for us, too, through Facebook. So that's a great thing. Love that.
That's wonderful. Any other questions? Thank you very, very much.
It's great to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Yes, thank you.
Next on the agenda is a review of the controversial issues in the curriculum policy and regulation. It's number 6144. And given one of the questions that I got from a board member this week, it's very timely. I was glad to review the policy and realize that my feelings were in line with what was in writing.
Paul Schluntz is a dear friend and colleague of mine. We used to teach together at Middlebrook, English teacher. And we had a rule of thumb, which was a policy that we used to always adhere to, which was never follow Paul Schluntz in a presentation. He's one of the best public speakers we've ever come across. in my new role, I have a new rule, which is now follow continuing ed to talk about controversial issues in the curriculum.
You're already breaking your rules.
At least it's an interesting policy.
Sure. As part of our regular cycle of trying to update the board and bring policies to your attention that have not been addressed in recent years, we tonight bring you the controversial issues in the curriculum policy. And to a large extent, the additional language we're recommending is part of Connecticut Association Boards of Education recommended language and takes the existing language found in the policy, which has been in place for years, and in my view, strengthens an emphasis on teaching and learning practices, which in my role dealing with curriculum and instruction really needs to be, I think, a focus. So it was an opportunity for you to review new language that we think really focuses in on what happens in our classrooms. So to that end, as you look at the language that's being recommended to embellish the policy, if you will, there's really a focus on the extent to which it's our obligation as part of our educational practice to practice good citizenship and help create a climate where students develop an attitude and a skill set around examining issues that are controversial, which, as you know, requires research, evidence gathering, an ability to analyze altering points of view. And then at the end of the day, hopefully with the solid facilitation of our teachers to support students in making their own critical stance on these issues. So I think, again, that's what the language represents and addresses. And of course, this process is also, I'd like to remind the board, in line with some of the language found in the Common Core update. You may recall that we discussed in our presentation the focus on opinion writing. That's very much a part of the emergence of the Common Core state standards. So, our teachers are hopefully, again, fostering this climate where they're giving students an opportunity to challenge their thinking, to look at issues that require critical analysis, and then ultimately to make independent judgments. But at the same time, I think additional language that points to the obligation of teachers to be careful about expressing any personal bias or viewpoints on issues, and be careful about indoctrinating students on their own personal views is important additional language to the policy. The final comment I would make is to speak to the recommended deletion of language on the second page of the policy as it relates to the acquired immune deficiency syndrome language. The intent behind that, this policy was written back initially in the late 80s. And at that time, the AIDS question was very much in focus. And the spirit in which I'm recommending that we delete that language is twofold. First, we have a policy, a board policy already on the issue. Secondly, the issue is addressed directly in our Students' Rights and Responsibility document that is posted on our website. And the most important point, I guess a third point, which I had failed to mention initially, is that I think the policy needs to be broader in that there are other sensitive topics. It seems as if we would be in a place now, if you wanted to continue to include that language, we would have to include other sensitive topic issues, particularly as it relates to our health curriculum, where you get into state-mandated conversations around alcohol and drug use, other matters around life education, so on and so forth. And it's important to recognize that there's clearly articulated language around these sensitive topic areas that would allow parents who feel uncomfortable, particularly at the high school level, to opt out of those conversations in lieu of an alternate assignment. So we're bringing this language to your attention. The regulations are untouched, in effect, in terms of how to respond to a controversial issue that does come forward and requires a member of our school community, a parent, to bring forward a concern around an area. It gives a structured process around which that parent could bring that complaint to our attention, and then mandates the superintendent work with his team on a very structured reaction process to try to work our way through that. So hopefully it gives you a summary of the recommendations, and I would invite your questions at this point.
Questions?
I have one language question. The underlined sentence at the end of the first paragraph, students should develop abilities to deal with controversial issues. I don't know what you mean by to deal with.
The intent of the language, which may need to be addressed, is to, as probably is better articulated in the second paragraph,
right.
is to be able to recognize controversial issues that come to the fore, and then to develop the skill set around a process which involves research, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, comparison of points of view, making a critical stand. So that's the spirit of the language, and perhaps it needs to be amended to be more direct so that that's clearly understood.
I think it could be stronger.
Yeah, the first part of what you just said, if you just replaced it with that, would be perfect.
I'm thankful that this is being videotaped.
Basically, identify and
To think about and
process.
What was that
process.
memory of
Yes.
class? She's gone.
I'm still back trying to remember geocaching.
We have notes.
I have a question with the first sentence. And we talk about differing values. Values are sort of a high standard, deeply held values, but not necessarily a controversial issue will be on a particular value, but maybe on a point of view.
Yeah,
And so I was just thinking
that's a
that
good point.
values or points of view, unless there was another wording for that, which are not deeply held, but yet controversial.
So just to
Well, I think
clarify,
aren't values, aren't points of view really at the end of the day, they're based in one's values, I think, and also one's frame of reference and other factors.
I just see them as not necessarily deeply held, but something that you may develop a point of view about something, but it may not be based on your core values.
Do you have an additional word or different word?
Well, just written in values or points of view.
I think
I
that
can
sounds
see
that
that
sounds right to me. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. Anybody else? Tom? Laura?
I was actually going to say that I think points of view, it doesn't have to be is clearer than values, because I think some of these, I think values can be a loaded word, especially in
I would
some of
agree
these
with that.
controversial issues.
I would agree
Yeah.
with that. I mean,
Like in
value
the
to me
classroom
can
and
mean, like religion.
right, because it does. Some of these do come out
Whereas
of
it could
religious.
simply be your point of view differs from someone else's. So it doesn't have to be inherent to your values.
So and
Right.
or, can it be
I would
and
I would
or?
agree with Gil's change.
So and or?
So values and or point of views?
That would be fine.
Is that what you were getting at,
No,
Laura? No,
but-
no,
I
it's
just
not.
think
Okay.
I would agree with
Laura, were you
Gil's
thinking just
simple-
points of view?
Yes. Oh, and eliminate the word values.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
I went through it trying to apply some of the more current controversial topics against this, trying to play devil's advocate, and I thought it was very relevant and sort of covered everything that I could have thought
Right.
wouldn't. Well, how does it, what about this?
In support of
And I thought it was very well done.
in support of Laura's perspective, you could think that your point of view is probably, in a lot of cases, based on your values. So we wouldn't be walking away from the importance of values in some people's eyes if we said point of view. How do people feel about dropping values and moving strictly to point of view?
as a comment, it just is interesting. I was looking at the high school's language that they use around informing families that they could opt out. They use the statement personal beliefs. But that's the spirit of what you're getting to.
Right.
I don't think dropping values works in the sentence because you're talking about differences of opinion, and differences of opinion are essentially points of view. So your differences of opinion would not be based on differing points of view.
Good point.
I guess I'm puzzled why we're, to your comment again, I'm not trying to be argumentative, I just don't understand why there's a concern about having the term values in something. It seems to me that, this country, there's a great debate ongoing, it's exciting, it's frustrating at times depending on whether your particular values are in the ascendancy or they're in retreat as you see it. And I think it really defines a lot of the conversations that we have. And I guess I'm just curious as to why we would shy away from using the term values. I think the point of view is important, and I think in part of this is helping young people. As Tim said, we're not trying to inculcate our values as educators onto someone. We're trying to develop in them skills to identify their values and to make decisions in their lives, social decisions, economic decisions, political decisions, interpersonal decisions based on a set of values that they hold and have developed. So I guess I'm curious as to why we wouldn't want to base it in the recognition that values drive a lot of the important conversations that we have in our society, in a democratic society.
Maybe the less highly charged phrase would be personal beliefs.
Well, I just wanted to perhaps propose an alternative to that first sentence, perhaps end it after the word opinion, period, and then add values further down in the paragraph where it says the objection may result from a feeling that a cherished belief, it could be comma, values, so that you get it in there maybe from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because I think that first sentence is kind of, you've said your point by the end of the word opinion.
That's a good point.
And a difference of opinion is a difference in point of view.
We all know what difference of opinion means, right?
And then
Period. And then
Bring it down.
building
and then add the word
value,
values further down along with that other list of things.
cherished belief,
economic interest, whatever.
Basic
values,
personal.
basic values it could be, or whatever. Personal values, whatever.
Other thoughts? I'm
I
comfortable
think
with
that
that.
makes sense.
I think that can work.
Were you okay with that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Another question. On, not to get into the regulations, but the complaint form. We use the word citizen. Is this intended, could a student fill this out? Or is this intended to be for parents,
You're saying
community
student.
members? The word citizen, I was just wondering if that had a meaning.
My interpretation of the regulations is that the extent to which an issue of concern has been dealt through the appropriate channels would eventually lead to that place is something that would be considered. You would think that if there were concerns around instruction, teaching and learning, that there would be a conversation with the teacher, with perhaps an administrator. You'd work your way through that, I guess, a cycle which is comparable to the other policy that may be relevant in this discussion, which is complaints dealing with conduct of the schools. I think the intent of the form is when the situation gravitates to a point where the superintendent needs to appoint a group to take a good hard look at the issue, and it really requires analysis and a thoughtful reaction that might require his intervention. That's the way I interpret it and view it. So in all likelihood, if that were the case, I think you would find that a parent would probably be the most likely individual to come forward. But as former high school principal, I would never want to preclude a student from bringing an issue to our attention. To answer your question.
It's on, obviously, tonight is review and discuss. Do we want to look at it again with these changes, or are we comfortable moving it to the consent agenda for the next meeting?
I'd like to look at it.
Yeah, I'd like to look at it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tim.
Next on the agenda is the financial report.
It's worse and worse, doesn't it?
No, we saved the best for last. Yeah. The best for last.
Whoever said Board of Ed meetings weren't enjoyable and fun?
We keep coming back.
Board of Ed
Variance reports are riveting.
I know. This is very. We could have replayed last meeting's report.
BOE
It's
is
very
gonna be-
very similar, but I'll run through the highlights and then take your questions.
BOE is going to become Board of Entertainment.
As of the end of March, I'm projecting an operating budget deficit of $70,500. The projected savings in salaries and heating oil are offset by overages in special education contracted services and substitutes. Salaries are under budget due to retirements and the Education Jobs Fund grant. Heating oil continues to be significantly under budget due to the mild winter and spring, and we're hopeful that this variance will grow further as we close out the heating season. The projected special education deficit is $521,045, almost entirely due to the overage of $473,733 in contracted services. And as I explained at last meeting, the contracted services exceed budget due to unanticipated services needed for several of our students. Outplacements remain under budget, but we continue to monitor that closely because that is always subject to change. Our excess cost claim for March was $1,356,850. The latest information I have from the state is that we should expect a reimbursement rate of about 65%, which would be approximately $882,000. After the town credits the board for the special education deficit, we have a net operating surplus of $450,545. As of the end of March, our health benefit expenditures are over budget by $353,307. This is almost entirely offset by the fact that our required OPEB contribution was $300,000 lower than budget. Ed Norgard still projects that our annual claims will be over budget by this amount, so we'll end up neutral at the end of the year. And of course, we continue to monitor the claims very closely. So far, April is running around normal. And obviously, we'll notify the board if any significant changes occur. I'll take questions.
Just for reminders for those viewing from home, the excess cost grant is projected this year to be at 65%. Last year it was.
About 74%, I believe.
So in effect, that's a hit against the town for about 9% of that excess cost grant.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Just a request, can you update us in your next report where we stand on the IBNR, the corridor, and the fluctuation reserves?
Yes. Yes, sir.
The one thing that I wanted to note here too is that I'm not seeing, other than those items that are clearly out of our control, that I talked about in my presentation to the town, I don't see any major variances in our line items in the rest of our budget. So it appears to me that the administration is doing a very nice job working to the budget.
They typically do.
Well, we're going to start highlighting that. So, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, future business timeline. The most important thing that we have in front of us right now is the town meeting. That is next Tuesday night, May 1st, at the Clune Center at 7:30. Please be there. Please vote. If you cannot make it next Tuesday at 7:30 at the Clune Center, you can go to the Clune Center on Saturday and vote. I believe it's from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. So please get out and vote, regardless of your perspectives on the budget. Greatly appreciate it. Beyond that, the rest of our calendar is on the website. We look forward to any comments that anybody has. Do you have anything else you want to say? And as we have at the end of every meeting, an opportunity for people from the...
I have a comment on the timeline. I have a
Okay.
request for the timeline.
Sure.
In the process of trying to answer the Board of Selectmen's question about the revised Miller-Driscoll Statement of Requirements, what do you have and what have you asked for? We have discovered that several things have been omitted from the Statement of Requirements.
Okay.
One being what Mr. Dubal mentioned was the playground. Another is that our assistant
I have to
director...
explain that later, I'm sorry.
Our Assistant Director of Special Education actually does have an office at Miller Driscoll for when she is there. We have not included that in the Statement of Requirements. We'd like to amend the language. There were questions about the language in terms of how far the student restroom should be from the classrooms. We have, Cheryl's pointed to better language that we'd like to include in that. And we have failed to include general school storage, such as that is in the basement of the original Miller School in the Statement of Requirements. So there are a few technical amendments that need to be made. So I'd ask that a re-revised Miller Driscoll Statement of Requirements be put on the May 8th.
Sure. Yeah, we talked about that
Yeah.
before the meeting, so we can do that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
agenda.
And we do want to note that that May 8th meeting is on a Tuesday, not on a Thursday. Any other comments, thoughts on the agenda?
Yeah,
Oh.
and I'll put something out in writing to the board. I may need to adjust the executive session, the May 8th and the May 24th. We have more time this year with June running a little longer, and I'll write a little explanation. I'm not ready to propose a date at this point, but I think we can still assume that there would be an executive session the 24th. It's just whether or not we'll need one on the June 14th meeting as well. So with the board's permission, I'd like to, I'll make a recommendation as to how we might do this and a kind of explanation why. Just need a little more time on the item that was scheduled for the 8th. So I need to...
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to note that, in fact, enrollment is up over last year by 19, and that it's up 73 if you look at the projections 1 year, April to April last year. So certainly not tracking down.
No.
Nope.
So as we do at the end of every meeting, we have an opportunity for comments from the public. We appreciate those and look forward to them. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak this evening? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
I will have my information
Okay.
for you tomorrow.
Okay.
I thought I read